Mom and Jenna are going to live with us. It will be easier to raise a child if there are adults here. Of course, Sarah will take care of the housework. If you don't like it, the only way is to get a divorce. I could only be amazed at my husband, who thought he could control me by threatening divorce. I wondered how much he thought he was worth as a husband. I decided to set him straight. I've already filed for divorce, so we're not married anymore. My name is Sarah. I met my husband, Tom, through work. During our courtship, Tom was very gentleman and kind, and I fell in love with him. But after we got married, he started showing his true colors. Tom had lived on his own after starting his career, so he should understand how hard housework is. But despite us both working, he dumped all the chores on me. When I suggested that we share the household chores and that he should help me a little, he refused, saying it was a hassle. He has always run away from housework, saying that I should do it because he has a higher salary than me and I was contributing less financially. I often thought about divorce, but I was over 30. I thought it would be difficult for a divorced woman over 30 to remarry, and I had to endure Tom's insolence. My grandmother had divorced when she was young and died alone, which made divorce a daunting prospect for me. As a naturally lonely person, I couldn't imagine facing the future alone. That was true even when I was being tormented by my MIL and SIL. Tom's family lived near us. His mother and sister, Jenna, often visited and treated our home as their own. Tom said it was fine because they were family and even gave them spare keys. They never did any housework but were always quick to criticize. They complained about the cleanliness and expected meals to be ready when they wanted. I repeatedly asked Tom to tell his mother and sister to stop coming over uninvited, but he always dismissed it, saying they'd always been like that. When I finally cried and told him that I did not want to be involved with his mother and Jenna, Takuma for some reason served me with divorce papers. What? Are you saying you want to divorce me? No, it's just in case. If we fill this out, we can divorce anytime. If you really insist, I'll ask my mother and Jenna to come over less often. With the baby on the way, I'll prioritize you from now on. This is my way of showing that. I didn't really trust what Tom was saying. He had always put his mother and Jenna first. He never made me his top priority. But since I was pregnant, I thought he might be willing to change. So, I filled out the divorce papers with him as a commitment. I'll change so that we never have to use these papers. I decided to believe him a little because I remembered how kind he had been during our courtship. Tom called his mother and Jenna and asked them not to come over so often. He seemed to have said that I was feeling sensitive because of the pregnancy and asked them to leave me alone until I calmed down. They were displeased but seemed to understand for the baby's sake. Life was truly comfortable without my MIL and Jenna constantly entering the house unannounced. As long as I didn't expect Tom to help with the housework, he was a considerate husband to me, especially during my pregnancy. I convinced myself that it was wrong to have expectations, so I stopped expecting anything from Tom. Once I started to think that as long as Tom wanted to be a good father to our child and a good husband to me, it was enough. I stopped being bothered by the fact that I was the one doing all the housework. As my due date approached, I brought up a request with Tom. Tom, I have a favor to ask. Is it okay if I go back to my hometown to give birth? Go back to your hometown? Is that really necessary? My parents lived a flight away. Tom assumed I would give birth at a local hospital, but I had decided I wanted to go back home for it. I don't get along with my MIL and SIL, so if my health declines after childbirth, I can't rely on them to help with the baby. It's much easier to be around my own parents, who I can be more comfortable with, and who won't stress me out. When I explained this indirectly to Tom, he finally agreed. However, I was shocked when he asked, why? When I told him it was hard to rely on his mother and sister. He had seen them come into our house uninvited and criticize me in front of him. The thought that he didn't mind made me question whether I could raise a child with him. So, when I went back home for childbirth, I quietly took the signed divorce papers with me. I hope this divorce paper never needs to be used. I hoped I wouldn't need them. At my parents' home, I spent my days relaxing. They took great care of me and were excited about their grandchild. Tom and I communicated through video calls. We were able to have relatively enjoyable conversations, sharing updates about the baby in my belly and our respective lives. The day I gave birth, I worked hard to bring my son into the world. Tom couldn't come due to work, so I sent him pictures and videos of our newborn son. He seemed excited and always said he couldn't wait to meet his son. As a formality, I informed my MIL, SIL, and PHIL about the successful birth. Only my PHIL responded. Along with words of congratulations, they kindly offered their support, saying I should rely on them if I ever encountered any difficulties in raising my child. Unlike MIL and Jenna, he had always been on my side. I was getting ready to go back to the house where I live with Tom after returning from my hometown. I received a phone call from my Phil. What he told me solidified my resolve. A few days after the call, I returned to the town where Tom and I lived. Tom took time off work to be home for my return. Since we didn't have a car, I traveled by train and bus. When I rang the doorbell, Tom opened the door with a smile. "Welcome back, Sarah. Where's the baby?" Tom expected me to come home with our baby, so he was surprised to see me with very little luggage. Ignoring his confusion, I said, "Excuse me," and stepped inside. The entryway was filled with women's shoes, confirming what my Phil had told me. "Why are there so many women's shoes?" I asked Tom, pretending not to know. "Mom and Jenna are going to live with us. It will be easier to raise a child if there are adults here. Of course, Sarah will take care of the housework. If you don't like it, the only way is to get a divorce." Tom had completely forgotten his promise to prioritize me. The phone call from my Phil before my return was a warning. My Phil had been a long-time government employee, now working part-time post-retirement. His wife had always been a housewife, but as soon as my Phil started being home more, she stopped doing any housework. The dexterous Phil, who managed to juggle housework and work, was fed up with Mil's too self-indulgent lifestyle and decided to divorce her, partly because of the resentment that had built up in their marriage over the years. Since their house belonged to my Phil's parents, it was in his name. My Mil would have to move out, and her only option was Tom's place. My Phil apologized for the inconvenience, but informed me that Jenna, a 26-year-old NEET, would come along if my Mil moved in with Tom. My Phil apologized for the trouble, but receiving this message allowed me to decide to start a new life. What is Tom thinking? Demanding that I accept his mother and Jenna moving into our home, or else he'll divorce me. Tom seemed proud of his higher income, but failed to realize his poor standing as a husband. I calmly informed Tom, who didn't understand that his evaluation as a husband at home was at its lowest. "I've already filed for divorce, so we're not married anymore." "What? You've got to be kidding. We just had a baby. The child needs a father, and you'd struggle the most without me." "I won't struggle. My parents have agreed to help with the baby, and I left the child with them today. Here are the keys." When I handed the keys to Tom, he seemed to finally grasp the situation. His face turned pale as he asked, "You're joking, right?" I responded, "I wouldn't lie about something like this." It was then Mil and Jenna showed up after hearing the commotion at the front door. They were smiling, probably expecting to see the baby, but were confused by the tense atmosphere between Tom and me. "What's going on? Where's the baby?" my Mil asked, clearly agitated. Like a child telling on a bully, Tom pointed at me, complaining that I divorced him without his consent. It was truly pathetic. It was at this moment that all the love and affection I thought I had for Tom completely vanished. My Mil and Jenna were furious that I filed for divorce without consulting them. When my Mil and Jenna demanded to know why I had done such a thing, I explained the situation to them. I never felt things were going well at all with Mil and Jenna. I was tired of being constantly complained about and made fun of. So I asked Tom to put my feelings first over yours. Tom promised to fulfill that wish and filled out the divorce papers with that commitment. When that promise was broken, and I found out that Tom's declaration of commitment was a lie, I filed the divorce papers. "You didn't get along with us because you never did the housework properly. You're so slow. There's no way you could handle both the housework and the baby. You should be grateful that Jenna and I are here," my Mil retorted. "That's quite a lofty attitude. In reality, you were kicked out by your husband. He finally divorced you, right? I've already thanked him for his hard work all these years. How dare he tell you that? What kind of man is he?" My Mil fumed, her face turning red, while Jenna looked displeased. "It's fine, Mom," Jenna said with a malicious smile. "Sarah is useless anyway, so it's good she's gone." "Sarah is such a useless person. It's a good thing you divorced her, Tom." "I don't want to hear that from you, Jenna." I picked a fight with Jenna because I wanted to get back at her for all the things she said from a distance, as if she had no stake in it. Jenna often came to my house while I was pregnant, used my gaming console without permission, and when she lost, she'd slam the controller on the floor. Thanks to her, my game was broken. Jenna didn't even apologize or offer to replace it. Instead, she told me to buy a new one quickly. One of the reasons for my divorce was that my husband, Tom, didn't defend me against such a brazen woman. I couldn't stand Jenna acting like an outsider. We were family, so I held back. But now that this is probably the last time we'll meet, I have something to say. Jenna, you should get a job. Being in your late 20s with no work experience will make it hard to find employment. You'll need a lot of money from now on, so good luck. Why would I need money? Because I'll be demanding alimony. From you, your mother, and Tom. Alimony? What did I do to you? Ignoring her lack of awareness, I started my phone, playing back the recordings of the insults from my MIL and Jenna, along with Tom's irresponsible remarks. I watched them turn red and try to grab my phone. Keeping my distance, I said, I'm recording this too. We're no longer family, so any violence will be a criminal offense. If you don't want to deal with the police, don't touch me. My MIL, finally realizing that the situation was getting out of hand, began to cry and started screaming. I'm being treated badly because Tom got a wife like her. Tom shouted back, you said Sarah was a good servant who always listened. Jenna yelled, I can't work. If I'm charged for alimony, you better pay Tom. It's your fault for marrying Sarah. Watching them blame each other was so foolish and ugly. I gave a formal goodbye to the three who didn't even look at me. I came here today to say thank you. Despite everything, we were family, and you did help me at times. Thank you for that. The rest will be handled by my lawyer, so don't contact me directly. I left the house, bidding farewell to the quarreling family. I never saw Tom or his family again. My lawyer took care of the alimony claims, and Tom paid up quickly. However, word got out at his job that he had to pay alimony to his ex-wife, and he became a target for layoffs. He ended up being let go. It seems he is now spending his days looking for a job. My MIL and Jenna argued daily, and eventually, Jenna moved out. She somehow managed to find a job, but with no work experience, she's struggling at her workplace and is under a lot of stress. My MIL started working at a local grocery store because Tom, being unemployed, couldn't support them financially. Tom, constantly nagged by his mother, is also in a tough mental state. I heard all this from my Phil, who had always been kind to me. He loved seeing our child. I wanted only my Phil to see the child's face, so when I visited him, he was very happy. My Phil gets along well with my parents, and he occasionally visits my parents' house to enjoy watching his grandchild grow. I found a job near my parents' home, earning enough to raise my child comfortably. My child is growing up healthy and happy. Despite feeling guilty for taking his father away, seeing my son's happy face reassures me that I made the right choice. To ensure my son has a fulfilling life without missing a father, I'm committed to giving my all to work and parenting.